It's hard to explain what it feels like when your entire life collapses in silence. Not with a bang, not with drama, but quietly. One moment you're holding it all together, and the next, you're simply not. For me, it began with losing my job. It wasn't even personal. The company downsized. One meeting, one email, and I was out. What followed was a chain reaction. My savings didn't last long. Rent piled up, and soon enough, I was evicted from the apartment I had called home for 5 years. I had no family nearby, and the few friends I reached out to were either too busy, too awkward, or just didn't respond. I tried to tell myself it was temporary, a bump in the road. But days turned to weeks, and reality hit harder each time I woke up on a bench or in a shelter that smelled of despair. I had never imagined I'd end up homeless. Me, with a degree, a decent resume, and dreams. And yet, I found myself invisible in a city I once loved. I passed people on sidewalks who wouldn't look me in the eye, who hurried past me as though my presence was something to be ashamed of, as if it might rub off on them. I remember one night vividly. It was cold, not yet winter, but sharp enough to bite through my coat. I sat on the edge of a dried-up fountain in a park I used to jog through when life was different. My body was tired, but my mind was louder, screaming with regret, fear, and a sadness so deep it numbed everything else. I hadn't eaten properly in days. My hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from hunger, from weariness, from life itself becoming too heavy to hold. That night, more than any other, I truly felt I was disappearing. No phone, no contact, no plans. Just a shell of the person I used to be. I wasn't just poor, I was forgotten, and I honestly didn't know how many more nights I could survive like that. It was in that exact moment of hopelessness, right when I believed nothing could change, that something did. I remember that night so clearly. The way the sky looked, the way the air smelled, the way my limbs felt like they carried the weight of 1,000 failures. I had wandered to a quiet part of the park where the old street lamps flickered and buzzed like they too had given up. I sat on a worn-out bench, my backpack beside me, my thoughts somewhere far away, lost in a fog of sadness I couldn't seem to escape. The silence of the night felt both peaceful and terrifying. It was a kind of quiet that made you feel like you didn't exist. Then out of nowhere, a sound, a soft, hesitant meow. At first, I thought I imagined it, but then I heard it again, clearer this time. I looked around, expecting to see a person calling for a pet, but instead, from beneath a hedge near the bench, emerged a small, skinny cat. Her fur was dirty and matted, her ears slightly torn, and her steps cautious but purposeful. Her eyes, though bright green and striking, held a strange familiarity, like she saw something in me no one else did. She approached me slowly, her tail low but flicking in curiosity. I didn't move. I didn't want to scare her away. To my surprise, she jumped up beside me and gently leaned her body against my arm. I froze, not out of fear but disbelief. It was the first time in weeks anything had voluntarily touched me with kindness. She sat down next to me and began to purr, her soft vibration humming through the silence like a song I had forgotten. I didn't know what to do. I just sat there, stunned by the absurd beauty of the moment. In the middle of a cold, empty night, a little cat, a stranger in her own way, had chosen to sit with me. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. Not in a way that broke me, but in a way that let light in. I didn't know where she came from or why she picked me. But for the first time in a long while, I felt seen. I felt like maybe I wasn't completely alone. That faint meow, I would later realize, was the beginning of everything changing. As I sat on the bench with the cat, now gently curled beside me, time seemed to stretch. I watched her chest rise and fall in soft rhythm, her warmth pressed against my side. In a city that had grown cold and distant, she felt like a flicker of connection, fragile but real. I was so absorbed in the moment that I almost didn't notice her approaching. A woman, perhaps in her late 60s, slowly made her way toward us. She wore a long burgundy coat, the kind that looked handmade and well-worn with time. Her steps were careful but confident. In her gloved hands, she carried a paper bag from a nearby bakery and a cane that barely seemed necessary. She wasn't watching the cat. She was watching me. She's called me so, the woman said gently, her voice rich with warmth and curiosity. She usually runs away from people, but she seems to have taken a liking to you. I blinked, unsure what to say. No one had spoken to me kindly in weeks. I looked down at the cat, and then back at the woman. She just showed up. I murmured, I didn't do anything. She smiled. You must have done something. Animals know things we don't. There was no judgment in her eyes, only a softness that made me feel like maybe I wasn't as broken as I thought. She sat on the other end of the bench, not too close, not too far. Just enough to let me know she wasn't afraid to share space with someone like me. We talked, slowly at first. Cautiously, I told her little pieces of my story, where I had come from, what I had lost. Not everything, just enough. And she listened, not with pity, but with a kind of quiet understanding, like she'd seen life from many angles and still believed in people. When I paused, unsure what came next, she said something that stopped me cold. You look like someone who deserves a second chance, she said. I stared at her, unable to speak. No one had said anything like that to me in a long time, maybe ever. Come with me, she added, rising to her feet, at least for dinner, and a warm place to sleep. I hesitated, then nodded. Sometimes the most unexpected kindness comes from those who owe you nothing and give you everything. The woman led me through quiet streets I didn't recognize, not because they were unfamiliar, but because I had never seen them through the eyes of someone who had a place to go. The lights seemed warmer, the shadows less threatening. Miso trotted along behind us like she'd done this before, like this was always how the story was supposed to unfold. We reached a modest but cozy-looking apartment building tucked between two shops. She opened the door with a small gold key and gestured me inside. The warmth that hit my face as I stepped in nearly made me cry. After nights of biting wind and the bitter chill of loneliness, even the heat from an old radiator felt like a luxury I no longer deserved. The apartment smelled like cinnamon and lavender, lived in, peaceful, familiar. Books lined the shelves. Plants crowded the windowsills. It was the kind of space where someone had loved and been loved for years. She removed her coat, placed a bakery bag on the table, and quietly began preparing tea. I sat awkwardly at the edge of the couch, unsure whether I should relax or brace myself. My body was exhausted, but my mind had forgotten how to let its guard down. Miso, however, knew exactly what to do. She leapt onto the couch and curled up in my lap, like this had always been her home. I stroked her soft fur absent-mindedly, grounding myself in her steady purrs. The woman, Evelyn, as I would later learn, handed me a steaming cup and a warm slice of sweet bread. Eat, she said simply. You need strength. Kindness is easier to accept when you're not starving. I nodded, unable to speak. The first bite nearly broke me. I had forgotten what real food tasted like. Not from a convenience store, not from a donation bin. Just food, made with care, offered without conditions. That night, I slept on her living room couch with a soft blanket, a full belly, and a cat purring at my feet. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, marveling at the silence. Not the kind that haunts you, but the kind that finally lets you rest. It wasn't just warmth I'd found in that apartment. It was dignity. It was safety. It was the first flicker of home. The days that followed were quiet, almost surreal. After living in chaos and uncertainty for so long, the stillness of Evelyn's apartment felt almost suspicious, like life was giving me a break I hadn't earned. But day by day, I began to realize that perhaps it wasn't about deserving anything. Maybe it was just about receiving what you need when you need it most. Miso quickly became my anchor. Each morning, she would nudge me awake with a soft paw on my cheek, as if reminding me that a new day had arrived and that I still had a role in it. I would feed her, brush her fur, and sit with her by the window as sunlight poured in. It was a small ritual, but it gave me a reason to get up, a purpose beyond survival. I started helping Evelyn around the house, fixing broken hinges, organizing old books, even carrying her groceries from a nearby market. In return, she paid me in meals, kindness, and something even more precious, belief. She treated me like a person again, Not like a problem to be solved or a mistake to be pitted, but someone capable of rebuilding, of maturing. With her quiet encouragement, I applied for small jobs. Nothing big, just enough to remind myself I still had skills, still had worth. I landed one at a local bookstore, part-time. The first paycheck I received felt like a trophy. I remember holding in my hands, stunned. It wasn't just money. It was proof that I still existed in the world of the living. Through it all, Misa was there, on the good days and the hard ones, always beside me. She seemed to understand everything without words. My mood, my fears, my fragile hope. Her soft purring, her playful tail flicks, her stubborn insistence on curling up in my lap. When I needed to stay grounded, all of it felt like love. It's strange how something as small as a stray cat could hold together all the shattered pieces of a human soul. But Miso didn't just save me with affection. She gave me something I had lost entirely. Connection. And through her, I found the strength to start again, slowly, quietly, one day at a time. It's been months now, maybe more. The seasons have shifted. The city looks different to me, not because it has changed, but because I have. I walk the same streets I once wandered in despair, but now I notice the sunlight between buildings, the laughter in parks, the way people smile without realizing it. I see life in the details again. I see myself in it. Miso is still with me. She's no longer scruffy and skinny. Her fur is soft, brushed daily, her belly round with comfort and care. She naps in sunbeams, knocks things off my desk, and waits for me by the door each evening when I come home from work. Yes, I have a home now. A small apartment, modest and quiet, but mine. A space filled with books, warmth, and the sound of Miso's soft purring. Evelyn and I still talk. We share tea some Sundays, and she brings Miso treats like a proud grandmother. She never made a big deal out of what she did for me. In fact, she always insisted it was Miso who brought us together. Maybe she's right. But to me, Evelyn's quiet compassion was a bridge I needed, the unseen miracle that changed everything. And I think about that night often. The bench, the hunger, the silence, and then a meow. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it pierced through the darkness like a thread of hope. And that thread led me back, not just to shelter or food or comfort, but back to myself, back to a belief I thought I had lost, that people can still be kind, that life can still surprise you, and that no one is ever truly alone if they're willing to notice the small things, like the eyes of a cat who chooses to trust you. Kindness echoes. It doesn't end in the moment it's given. It ripples outward. I try to pay it forward now, not in grand gestures, but in the simple ways. Listening when someone needs to be heard, offering help without waiting to be asked, sharing silence when words aren't enough. Because sometimes all it takes is one act of kindness, one soft purr, one stranger who stops to care. And in those moments, lives change, quietly, forever.